سهولة لإدارتها أو التعاون المشترك إنه يكون، ولا إنك تحكي عن وجود دعم مالي خارجي أو المستثمرين إنك تدعوهم، لأنه الآن في حالة الاستثمار في جميع الدول العربية في مأزق، لأنه ما بيجي مستثمر على دولة على إقليم ملتهب. نحن والحمد لله دولة آمنة، والاستثمار توقعنا أن يكون الاستثمار والدعم لهذا البلد أنه يكون أكثر، لكن للأسف الشديد بضيافتنا لحوالي 1,400,000 لاجئ سوري لم يتم الدعم إلا لحوالي 20% من المبالغ التي تم صرفها على حساب المواطن الأردني للاجئين السوريين. فمن هذا المنبر يعني بحكي لكل الممولين، الأردن قامت بواجب عن جميع العالم باستضافة اللاجئين، وعليهم الواجب، لأنها مش السبب في هروب أشقائنا السوريين من مناطقهم إلى الأردن، فهنالك أيدي أخرى، أيدي ثانية اللي إلها إيد في عمل الحروب في هذه المنطقة، فيجب أن تتحمل واجبها بدعم الأردن. لأنه إحنا الآن كان لدينا خطط كثيرة ومشاريع للمواطن الأردني، توقفت هذه المشاريع وتحولت إلى خدمات أخرى ليست هي أولوية الأردنيين. وشكرا.
Yeah, good day, everybody. When we are talking about the challenges, actually, there are so many challenges and mismanagement of water resources. Because of the water scarcity, we do have so many challenges. And it's known widely that it is a governance and management crisis more because of the scarcity of water resources. So if we look at the governance and integrity in general, we do have a complex system of different stakeholders, actors and factors which is outside of the water sector, like energy, trade or tourism. So there are many factors and actors surrounding the governance issue and the integrity. So if we speak about the governance in general, it is skills and institutions and actors. And you can see that there is, and you can notice in many countries, in our countries, that there is unclear responsibility of the stakeholders, or there's overlapping even between the different governmental agencies. You can also see that there are in some, or most of Arab countries or our countries here in the region, we have some poor resources management. We have, unfortunately, and this we can say it also clear, that we have some corruption. We have in some inappropriate institutional arrangement, and in some insufficient capacity building in that area. So why when we are speaking about water governance actually and integrity, we are seeking for alternative how to use the best way of using the remained and to sustain the water we have, or to create a new alternatives by bringing much more fund allocation to secure more water. If we look at the whole system in some countries that we have seen in Tunisia and Morocco and recently in Palestine, for example, there is kind of reform process. And this become also urgently because we have different practices, which is somehow it is not so efficiently. For example, if we say that when a water tariff, there is a gap between the water tariff and the cost production of waters. So there is no revenue for the water, and such there is financial insolvency, and this will be on the government budget, beared on the government, and this way we cannot go ahead with the water resources management. As well as we have different problem. The non-revenue water is so high, and so we have to deal with that. This is part of, not to take a long time, part of the problem and the challenges I see, and maybe we'll come back later to it. Thank you.
The challenges in the regional context, of course, revolve around water scarcity and sustainable resource management. Given a number of existing governance gaps coupled with the regional conflict and the refugee crisis, the overall situation of the water sector is very challenging here in Jordan. So while in theory, good governance can be can be achieved in a relatively straightforward way. However, the devil is in the detail, of course, and in practice, it can be a lot more complicated. The single greatest challenge is achieving a sustainable setup through reforms, including tariff reform, without compromising the affordability of the service and without impacting the more vulnerable users. The main risk in not addressing this and in not undertaking reforms would be the ability to maintain service provision, let alone improving it. Dependence on the central government's subsidies and donor funding is one way of addressing an emergency situation, but it's not a sustainable long-term solution. We all know, of course, in terms of the Jordanian context, the government budget is stretched thin, there's very limited borrowing capacity, and donor funding will eventually run out. So again, this is a temporary solution to depend on those and not a long-term solution. In terms of cost, the cost of not undertaking reforms will be much higher than the perceived costs and challenges of undertaking immediate reform. And a tough reform program would prove to be less costly in the long run than not undertaking any reforms. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Governance and integrity are found to be essential for the management of water resources and for providing water and sanitation systems efficient to achieve sustainable and equitable access to basic needs. However, the business as usual or the lack of good governance in the water sector will have its short-term and long-term impacts. It will increase the cost of services. It will limit the access of vulnerable groups, and it will cause increased wastes and degradation in the environmental resources. It will cause also inefficient usage of financial and human resources. Improving the water integrity is a constructive approach that to reduce and prevent corruption and to improve performance of the water sector. The integrity, of course, refers to the need of the public, private, and civil society representatives to be honest in carrying out their functions. Transparency is the right of citizens to access relevant information, which is a challenge. Openness and public access to information are vital for water users to understand the decision-making processes that affect them. Working on these aspects will lead to more responsive service delivery systems and eradication of corruption. There is a need also to identify the relevant actors, their roles and responsibilities, identification of institutions and working in the sector, and identifying the overlapping responsibilities and trying to define these overlaps and make it more efficient, make the functionalities of these institutions more efficient. The stakeholders' dialogue for concerted action needs to be enhanced. Participatory water planning needs to be in place. And last but not least, there is a need to improve the accountability systems in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. يعني I want to speak in Arabic, please, Anthi. شكرا أنثي. يعني أنا التحديات بدي أكمل على اللي بدأوا الأخ علي بحكي إنه كل التحديات اللي في العالم موجود في الأردن. طبعا بدي أضيف كمان وحدة تحدي أكبر لسه من الأردن، اللي هو عندنا إحنا الاحتلال الإسرائيلي بيفرض كمان تحدي أكبر بكثير من التحديات المذكورة، اللي هي تعيق اتخاذ إجراءات باتجاه الشفافية والترانسبيرنسي من عدة نواحي. طبعا الناحية الأولى اللي هي معيق للخطط التنموية سواء على الأرض أو الاستيراد والتصدير والرقابة، كلها يتدخل في الاحتلال. لذلك بعتبر أنه الاحتلال الإسرائيلي أكبر تحدي عندنا في ما يخص قضية الحكم الرشيد والنزاهة. وفي كمان مشكلة ثانية الاحتلال يخلقها، قد تكون الاحتلال شماعة يعلق عليها المخططون مثلا فشلهم واخفاقاتهم في أداء خططهم. عندما يفشل أي مخطط بيحكي الاحتلال، فهذا طبعا برضو معيق ويعتبر يعني مشكلة. مشكلة ثانية أو تحدي ثاني كبير في يحول دون أو يشجع خلينا نقول الفساد في قطاع المياه، اللي هو قطاع المياه تقريبا أكبر قطاع مهم في القطاعات، والاستثمار فيه تقريبا أكبر قطاع نستثمر فيه. بالإضافة إلى أنه المياه هي عنصر حيوي ومهم جدا لا نستطيع الاستغناء عنه. لذلك المسؤول يجد نفسه في عجلة من أمره لإنهاء المشاريع والبروجرامز بغض النظر عن الأوديتنج سيستم والرقابة والكذا. لهذا السبب بيكون في نوع من الصراع مما يخلق الفساد، طبعا في غياب المجلس التشريعي وفي غياب أنظمة الرقابة. فهذا بعتقد أنه يعني مهم جدا لإلقاء الضوء عليه وكيف حل مشكلته. النقطة الثالثة أو تحدي كبير ثالث، تعدد الدول المانحة وما يتبعها من تعدد نظم الشراء البروكيورمنت سيستم أيضا يساعد على خلق الفساد. ليش؟ لأنه الموظفين اللي بيشتغلوا في الحكومة يجدوا نفسهم كل واحد متخصص في نظام شراء محدد، نظام البنك الدولي، نظام اليو اس ايد، نظام الاي اف سي، نظام أنظمة متعددة. فعندما تكون أنظمة متعددة يكون الفساد أكبر أنا بعتقد. فلهذا السبب نحتاج إلى إيجاد نظم تستوعب تعددية الدول المانحة في هذا الإطار. كذلك تحدي رابع يمكن أن يكون كيفية دمج القطاع الخاص في إدارة الخدمات وخصوصا خدمات المياه، وكيفية مشاركته لخلق بيئة فاعلة. وشكرا.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this experience. We have a lot of experience here in this panel. Thank you for sharing this with us. Now, in this second round, I would like to address one question and challenge a little bit more the national representation from Jordan, Palestine, and Tunis. So this is engineer Suba Kitani and Chuk. For the two projects, your institution has been the anchor in the country. So for the governance and financing project, as well as for the integrity project, those projects work through your institutions. From your perspective, which is the route to go? Which lessons learned? Which lessons have you been learning, and what is the best practices that you would like to see forward? So maybe, well, let's start with you, Kitani.
في العربي طبعا in Arabic. يعني concerning two projects, you are talking about two projects. The first one, المشروع الأول المشروع الجفرنانس. طبعا أنا كنت مشارك في المشروع الفيز 1 وكان يعني مشروع جيد، وبعتقد انه وضعنا خلينا نقول على الستيب الخطوه الاولى باتجاه الجفرنانس، ولكن انا بعتقد انها خطوه يعني غير كافيه وبحاجه الى البناء عليها، لان احنا اصلا اللي وضعناه عباره عن نظريات باتجاه يعني كيف نخلق جفرنانس وكيف نسهل الطريق لادخال ومشاركه القطاع الخاص في اداره الخدمات. نحن بحاجه الى خطط كيفيه وضع هذه الافكار اللي انطرحت في المرحله الاولى موضع التنفيذ. من اين نبدا؟ يعني ماذا نفعل لكي نبدا فيها خطوه خطوه؟ هذا المشروع الاول. المشروع الثاني اللي هو الانتجريتي، انا بعتقد يعني هو كان عباره عن تدريب ومعلومات واويرنس في مجال انتجريتي فقط، ما هي النزاهه وكيف يتم استخدامها في القطاع العام، وهذا طبعا برضه يعني غير كافي لأن نبدأ بروجرام شامل في موضوع النزاهة. بحاجة إلى كثير من الخطوات العملية لكي نرسخ مبادئ النزاهة والشفافية والأخلاقية خلينا نسميها في مجال وإدارة قطاع المياه. شكرا.
Thank you. Engineer Suba.
Yeah, thank you. I think, relating to the governance and finance, if we talk about Jordan, Jordan has a good experience in the private sector participation in all the water, Jordan has good experience in PSP since years. So, and we had a lesson learned from mistakes here and there. We started from small to big or large projects. We have nowadays, for example, Samra treatment plant, one of the biggest treatment plant in the Middle East, working in the BOT, whereas the private sector participation play a role there. DC project, for example, the same thing, one of the biggest projects, more than $1 billion, the cost of this project, transferring 100 million cubic meter from south to Amman and to whole Jordan after that. And there is small projects here and there. Yesterday there is a project for expansion of the treatment plant signed by the government for the same thing in private sector participation in Aqaba. And there is a big, very big or large project will be the Dead Sea project, whereas phase 1 now it's under evaluation of the bidders. So, and it will go next stage and to reach the full project capacity, which is around 1 billion cubic meter. So we have experience in that, but there is gaps here and there in the capacity of the institutions. Some we found, for example, in the legislation, there is something should be corrected here and there. And the big problem, how to have a trust from the local investors to interfere in the water sector projects, because almost all our projects financed by private sector from outside. So this should be, there is many key areas where we, through the study, discover that they need for additional correction from the government side. And really we are working a lot about that, because the main issue we discover it's the financial issue, and we are working on it. Relating to the other project, integrity, yani Jordan take all the parameters of integrity in consideration when we are talking about water. But when you are in shortages, financially and from water point of view, sometimes you find there is problems to have the equity between, for water supply everywhere the same. For example, there is voices why Amman have per capita more than others, but there is a lot of investments, and you should clarify the things for the others, that there is something in Amman need to have water all the time or more than others. There is touristic places, for example, there is investments places that need this water. But now what we are doing, we put a concept that, for example, for Amman to have 120 liter per capita, and other governorates to have 100, or main cities to have 100 liter per day, where the rural areas to have 80. We took this in consideration that this amount fill the needs of the people. But to have equity that all the same, it's not easy because of infrastructure, because of the resources and so on. And nowadays, we try to fill this concept by over abstracting the groundwater. It means we lending the water for future generation nowadays and give it to the people who live nowadays. And we should think about this amount, what we borrowed nowadays, how to bring it back for a future generation by establishing the strategic projects that it will let the people in the future